Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to With Jewish Youth. I certainly hope you enjoyed the last two programs we had on with the gentleman and the young lady from Queens College. All I can tell you is that it really kicked up an awful lot of dust and caused a great rumpus around town. And everybody is talking about it, and we're already beginning to get feedbacks from that program, and very pleasant ones, in fact. And so I'm so glad that we have an opportunity to be able to bring you these diversified programs, but programs that have specific impact on the Jewish home and on the Jewish person, especially the young individual, the one who really needs it more than anything and anyone else, the college youth. And tonight we are equally honored, for tonight we are privileged to have with us a most outstanding person, none other than Rabbi Dr. Nissen Mindel. Now, our radio audience will surely remember his first appearance on our program a couple of weeks ago in connection with Yud Shvat, which was the anniversary of the passing of the great Lubavitcher Rebbe Zecher Tzadik Levroche, and the program that he did about the Rebbe and his personal relationship with him. Judging by the response that we have had to that program, I can tell you that it is a pleasure to have Dr. Mindel back with us, because there are so many people who have expressed their appreciation for that unique program that we had. So, Dr. Mindel, welcome to With Jewish Youth.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi Hecht. I'm very pleased to once again share the mic with you and with your enthusiastic audience. I'm ready to answer any of your questions.
Well, Dr. Mindel, today we're going to do something a little bit different than we did last time. On our first program with you, you did not want to talk about yourself. You wanted to devote all available time to the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Levroche. But tonight, we are going to talk about you particularly in your capacity as an author, writer, an editor, and a translator. Some years ago, a colleague of mine told me that he visited the Jewish National Library at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He was curious to know if they had the English edition of the Tanya, which you translated. Consulting the catalog, he found listed under your name no less than 30 titles. Have you written that many books? And when did you start your literary career?
Well, let me begin with the second question first. I started writing when I was, that was in 1930, when I was at the University of Manchester. I was then serving as a foreign correspondent for the Jewish daily called Hecht, a Jewish daily that appeared in Riga, Latvia. As you know, I come from there. It was a daily and an evening paper. And I reported to the paper on Jewish life in Great Britain and other interesting news. Occasionally, I contributed articles also to the local Anglo-Jewish press, and also occasionally a short story and so forth. But my real, so to speak, literary career actually began about 10 years later, in 1940, when I came here in the United States together with the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Why do you say that your career for serious writing began then? What does that really mean? Did you first undertake a larger volume or a more serious type of book?
Well, there are two replies to this. First of all, I was then seriously studying Chabad, and I became very much interested in the philosophy of Chabad, and I found it extremely illuminating and gratifying. It has cleared up so many of my own problems, doubts, and so forth. And I began to feel that such a wonderful literature, which was as yet a closed book, should be made available to the English-speaking Jews, to the both in America and elsewhere. And this is where I began to think seriously about writing on Chabad philosophy.
And did you start actually translating or writing something anew?
Well, my first effort was, you see, when I was studying Chabad, I was making notes for myself. And then I had quite some notes accumulated, and I decided to publish some of them in the form of a booklet. And my first fruit, so to speak, that ripened then was the booklet called The Commandments, a philosophical exposition of their meaning and significance. Now, this was my first serious effort in the Chabad philosophy.
All that I can tell you is, speaking about the Commandments, the book called Commandments, it's more than just a booklet. It's quite a very impressive-looking pamphlet, more than a pamphlet, I should say, about 40 or 50 pages. And I know that it had a very profound impact on academic youth. For in that book, The Commandments, you really do a philosophical interpretation about faith and the entire approach to Judaism, which is so very important. And I must confess that I was one of those who sent out many thousands of these volumes of commandments to many people who have written to me in answer to some of my ads in the New York Times. I think that our audience would also be very, very happy to know that there have been reprints of this commandments book for about 10 times, which means that close to 100,000 of these have already been distributed throughout the world. And let me congratulate you. If this was your first, by the way, I didn't know, Dr. Mindel, this was your first, but if this is any reason about good beginnings, sort of giving you the proper setting for the future Kanahara, I could now see why you have reached to such great heights and why each book that comes out under your title today is perhaps better than the one that you wrote before. But to digress for a moment, most writers and authors have a problem of finding a publisher. I wonder, did you have such a problem too?
Well, I was fortunate and I did not really have to look for a publisher. And this is also a further answer to your question why I consider that the time of the beginning of my serious literary career, so to speak. You see, when I came together with the previous Lubavitcher Rabbi, as I mentioned before, and the Rabbi, of course, set out to do many things that were missing here in America to put new life into the Jewish community, American Jewish community, and so forth. And so one of the things which he considered very important was the fact that there was a lack of suitable literature, especially for young children and adults also, the kind of literature that we would call kosher literature. This is the time when the Lubavitcher Rebbe founded the Kahot Publication Society and set out to remedy this very serious lack, namely to provide a whole range of kosher literature for Jewish children and youth.
And they automatically published everything that you write. You don't have any other publisher to whom you have offered some of your literary works?
No, I have no other publishers. They have published all my publications. And one of the things that we began, the Rebbe initiated at the time, was the two magazines for children in English and in Yiddish called Talks and Tales and Schmusen mit Kinder und Jugend, respectively. Now, I was from the beginning put in charge of this as the editor of these two magazines, And I am really glad to say, I'm grateful and proud that since we started it nearly 33 years ago, we have not missed a single issue, either in the English or the Yiddish publications, which appear simultaneously.
Is this a monthly or weekly?
This is a monthly magazine, and moreover, the contents of one differs from the other, so that one who has both English, reads both English and Yiddish, of course, has a double quantity of material at the same time.
I also believe that these talks and tales, if I recall correctly, when I was visiting Italy, when I was visiting Israel, I've seen these magazines in Hebrew and Italian. Do you give this, are these magazines published in other languages, and if so, how many?
Yes, you see, Lubavitch, as you know, we have institutions, educational institutions and activities in many parts of the world. Both where they speak English as well French, in Italy, Italian and Spanish, South America and Spain and so forth. So we began to publish foreign editions of the Talks and Tales in a number of languages. First, they began to appear in Hebrew, called Sichot LaNoar, and they are published in Kfar Chabad in Israel. We also publish the French edition through our central office in Paris.
Excuse me, Dr. Mindel, is this the translation from what you write in the English and the Yiddish, or do they write a separate material, different than what you have in our Talks and Tales and Schmooze here in New York?
No, those are actually translations. They are foreign editions of the same material, but they appear in different languages, so that so many children in so many different parts of the world, whether they speak English or French or Spanish, Italian, Dutch, Hebrew, they can all avail themselves of these magazines, monthly magazines.
If I may, Dr. Mindel, you won't be angry with me if I just pay you a compliment and tell you that not only children can enjoy Talks and Tales, but adults as well, and not only young adults, but alte Zedis, even at the age of 80, will still get a real kick out of reading your material, and it's always very enlightening. This is the most interesting thing. There's such a diversified set of subjects dealt with, and there's so much depth brought out into simple language that I think it's really an honor for anybody to have this magazine come into their home. I would say that we will come back to this a little bit later, but let me get on a little further. You know, Dr. Mindel, in my work in the various camps, Camp Amunin, Camp Shalom, in the anti-Shmad work, the release time work, I found many of your works extremely useful, and I must say that I stole a lot of it, and I've used it, in fact, in sermons of my own. And I've always found your material to be very, very solid. It's full of content and beautifully prepared, and anybody who has any talent would know exactly how to utilize the material that you turn out. But you know, you're not only a prolific writer, but also a versatile writer and author. Your works, from what I've seen, range from profound philosophy and Jewish mysticism to short stories and plays for young children. Now, these are two extremes. Tell me, what types of writing do you like most? And how do you explain such a variety of interest and subject? You're a very talented and blessed individual to have the ability to be able to write for little children and at the same time to write for geniuses and people who are very deep thinkers. I think our audience will be very interested to know how you come about to be able to write on such a variety of subjects, and also we would like to know, or I would like to know at least, which of these do you like the most?
Well, it's like asking parents, which of the children they love most. I like all my children, I enjoy writing whatever the subject is. Anyone who does any creative writing has great gratification from it, especially, as in this case, when I realize that they are very welcome, eagerly awaited, and serve a very important purpose. As I mentioned earlier, you see, the Lubavitcher Rebbe found that there is a lack of Jewish literature and kosher literature in every field. And so I במקום שאין אנשים השתדל להיות איש. It happened that it fell upon my shoulders, so to speak, to do various things. Now, for instance, there was a need for plays, Hanukkah plays, Purim plays, and the schools. The Merkaz, the Yana Chinuch, the educational arm of the Lubavitcher movement, it made its impact right away on the scene of Jewish education, and anyone who needed anything like a play or something like that, they would come to the Merkaz and say, have you anything in that field? And so I received such assignment, and we had to produce Hanukkah plays, Purim plays, and so forth. And similarly, the question of short stories. You see, we ought to really go into the question of the importance of juvenile literature for children. Children, as you know, are very inquisitive. They're curious. They like to learn things, and they absorb things very quickly, and they're also easily influenced. Now, if we analyze the sort of juvenile literature that there is on the market, not necessarily Jewish in general, but if we realize more that a child can go into a public library and browse among the book stacks and pick and read whatever he wants, so we can realize that there we have a problem. Now, in literature, we can say there are three types as far as educational literature is concerned. It's either useful, informative, or it is at least harmless, or it could be harmful too. I don't have to tell you, I've heard you speak about the problem of pornography and things like that. I mean, unfortunately, these things are available to young children, whether by going direct to the public library, or an older brother or sister might bring in something into the house, and so forth. Now, unless we provide something that is really useful for a Jewish child, he is exposed to those dangers at an impressionable age, where the influence is tremendous, and therefore the Rebbe being so concerned about the well-being of the children, of course, saw it as one of his first priorities to provide a literature that could be offered to the Jewish children to take them away from anything else, and at the same time give them something useful, interesting, and informative, something Jewish, you see. Something that would at the same time strengthen their character and their Jewish identity and feelings and so forth. And this is why we try to provide this whole range of literature for young, which, as you said very rightly before, they can just as well serve to older persons. As a matter of fact, now you're a rabbi, I don't know if you ever used my material in any of your sermons, but some...
I already confessed that.
But some rabbis have told me that they've been able to use some of the material, save them to search for other material, using the talks and tales or other material that we have published.
Dr. Mindel, one of your great works that I know of, and I think our audience should know about this, that your works are not only a home item, but it's also used as textbooks in the schools, and that there are many schools throughout the world where your books are coming in, such as Our People, which strikes me at this moment. That is the 3-volume history book that you have written about, and have rewritten it, in fact. And I know that this is one of your contributions to the Jewish world of children and adults, which really have no duplication. There was, at the time, I remember when you began writing this work, from what I heard, there wasn't really one honest-to-goodness kosher history book on the market. And yours was the first to appear, which really hit the spot, to use an American vernacular. Perhaps you will also tell us something about the festival series, which I think is one of the finest set of books on the festivals, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkos, that I have ever seen turned out. And there was one thing you forgot to say, Dr. Mindel, when you spoke about literature, and that is that it also could be entertaining. And I must say that yours is intriguing and entertaining, because once I begin reading one of your stories, I couldn't put the book down until I finish it. So perhaps you'll just do a little bit more on what I've just asked you. And I have 2 other very important questions, as long as time will hold out, that I'd like to get in. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that I'm going to ask Dr. Mindel to be with us again on Monday to give us the opportunity of telling us more about his wonderful works and the contributions that he has made to Jews and Judaism the world over. But Dr. Mindel, tell us something a little bit more about the history book and the festival series.
Well, about the history book, I must say that here it's really the product of a team. I started it, but we had a team working, because this is a major work, and cover the entire Jewish history. Perhaps I have 10 or 12 volumes, and of course this is the product of not my own writing. As the director of publications and chief editor of all publications, I am certainly to some extent responsible for it, but I cannot claim it entirely as my own work. Now, with the festival series, I may say that I authored all the festival publications that we published. We began publishing a booklet on each festival separately, like Pesach, Shavuos. We called it complete Pesach story, complete Shavuos story, and so forth. And then we eventually published all the complete festival series in 2 volumes. And again, I'm gratified that they have been so popular. They've been reprinted many, many times. These are really used as texts in many schools. As a matter of fact, the Talks and Tales, too, are very often subscribed in great numbers and used in classes in different parts of the world. And certainly I would very strongly urge that all these publications to be made part of the curriculum of every Jewish school.
Dr. Mindel, while we're on that subject, I think that we ought to get in a little bit of a commercial. I know that we've whetted everybody's appetite, and people would want to know where to get these publications. Perhaps you could tell them where they could turn to get a list of or a catalog of all the publications that have come out under your guidance, and then perhaps they could place their orders and get some of your works.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, all the publications are published by our Hecht Publication Society, with offices at 770 Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn, 11213, New York. But to make it short, if you write just books, 770 Eastern Parkway, etc., you can obtain a catalog of all our publications and order direct. Of course, also most stores that sell Hebrew books sell our publications, and if they don't, you can just order it through them, and we'll be very glad to send you.
Could your books also be gotten in the public libraries?
Some of the books are in the public library, in the central library on Fifth Avenue, and I'm not quite sure if the local libraries have, but some do. As a matter of fact, if they don't, you can order them through the local library, and I'm sure they will get it for you.
Dr. Mindel, time is running out. We have hardly scratched the surface. We would like to discuss some of your other works, especially your latest book on the Siddur, called My Prayer, published last year, which has been reprinted already twice in the same year, and your most recent book on the philosophy of Chabad. I, and I'm sure my listening audience, will look forward eagerly to your next appearance on our program, Im Yetz Hashem, this coming Monday. In the meantime, many thanks for being with us. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that there is a great deal that we should have learned from tonight's show. And that is that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, may he live and be well, has lately put a tremendous amount of stress on building of libraries. In every community there should be a library where people could come in and read decent literature, informative literature, and at the same time also have an opportunity to be able to lend a book, or rather to borrow one, and be able to read it at home. Would you want to say something, Dr. Mindel?
If I have a minute while you mention the subject, it would be very interesting to note that soon after, almost immediately after the previous Rebbe's arrival, he began to speak about pollution. Much long before the pollution became a problem of today, the acute problem that it is today. He spoke also of pollution of the atmosphere, but of course in a spiritual sense. And we often heard him say the expression, metaher zu sein dem Avir, to purify the atmosphere. And the way to do that was to try and get rid of all the undesirable and harmful literature that has flooded the libraries and the schools and the homes, and start bringing in something really pure and holy, and thereby purifying the atmosphere in a truly spiritual sense.
Well, and you've been the fortunate one through whom this has been accomplished, and I believe that we owe you a tremendous debt and a vote of thanks for the magnificent job that you have really done. And so, my dear friends, we have brought to a close another week of With Jewish Youth, another series of interesting shows, of interesting programs with outstanding people as our interviewees. And so, as we are once again on the eve of the Sabbath, I would like to announce that the time for lighting of candles will be at 6:29, and Shabbos will end at 7:37. I would also like to say, my dear friends, that those of you who have not yet joined us in helping support these programs, send your contributions to With Jewish Youth, 824 East Rome Parkway, Brooklyn, or care of station WEVD, 1700 Broadway, New York. And until Monday at the same time, may God bless you all.